a part of the the interview as well. We can.
He may need to.
Yeah.
This is Jack Bauer, by the way. The cat that is
like 24 Jack Bauer.
Yes, named after the character.
That's all. So that was one of my dad's favorite TV shows, like of all time.
And our other cat is named Leroy Jenkins.
Yes,
that I'm familiar with.
Seems like that's something I should probably say on the actual show. I should save my good material.
Well, fortunately for you, I've already hit record as of 35 seconds ago. So you have brought that material and you've put it on the podcast. You're already doing great.
See, that's kind of how it is. I'm used to that with the Nerdburger podcast. I've been on their show a lot of times, and often, at least back before COVID times when it was in person. By the time we sat down around there, we were sort of like, "So, what are we going to talk about today? How's everybody doing?" The record button had already been hit, and sometimes little snippets of that conversation would become the pre-show stinger.
Yes,
for them. So I'm used to that.
That's one of my favorite things to do is sneakily hit that record button because you never know. Like once people, I don't know, there's kind of a weird disconnect where like once the record button is hit, people kind of, there's that frame of mind like, oh, I'm being recorded. So you can catch really great like golden moments with people not knowing that they're being recorded because there's no pressure.
Well, I don't have to worry about that with me. I'm the one that my ham factor shoots up when I know I'm being recorded. So
okay, cool.
A performer, I appreciate that. I think my energy level does that too.
Same.
There you go. Extroverts unite.
I would consider myself an introverted extrovert. It has to be the right time and place.
I generally consider myself an ambivert, which is I've got bits and pieces of both. When I am in my element, like especially if it's kind of about me, like somewhat like this will be, that's where I just like shine. But if I am really kind of not in my element and I'm a little bit unfamiliar and uncomfortable, man, I can clam up and be super timid. And you'd be like, is that the same Ando? Because you don't look like the Ando that I know.
Yeah.
I relate to that massively. Like, if I'm out of my element, it is nope. But you get me in a wrestling ring or something like that in front of a crowd, I mean, all bets are off.
I was going to say, gloves come off.
Wrestling ring, not a boxing ring.
Well, trunks come off? I don't know.
Trunks come... No, the trunks stay on.
The trunks better stay on. I've watched enough professional wrestling in my life. Trust me, they better stay on.
It's a family show, so they've got to stay on.
Ando, who's your favorite wrestler? If you have one.
I do, but bearing in mind that when lockdown started last March, I had to cancel my WWE network subscription, so I haven't watched anything in over a year. But at the time, I was a big fan of Bray Wyatt. And so here's the thing.
Nice.
I don't know if this is an anecdote that we need to officially start the show before I go to this, but you may find it of note. So do you want me to give you a sec, or do you want me to just dive in?
You know what? Give me 10 seconds. Let me hit this intro. Okay. We'll get it started. Give me 1 second.
Hey.
Salutations, good people. Welcome to the CS Podcast, where we create stuff, or if you're Trey,
create shit.
And today, we are back in the saddle. We've got our hands absolutely full with our second ever call-in guest.
I was going to say, Ando. Ando, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate being here. It's great. I love being on podcasts, so great to be here trying a new one out.
And I think, is Ando our first ever return guest?
I guess technically you could say it, since we did feature him. I guess or feature them 2 weeks ago.
Something like that, yeah.
I was gonna say it's been 2 weeks since Ando. Yeah, we featured them. So Ando, I guess. Welcome to the show. Welcome back in a way. I don't
sort of. At least now I can speak for myself, and you don't have to make assumptions about me.
Exactly.
There you go.
So as you were saying before we hit that intro, we can dive into a little bit of wrestling talk, I suppose.
Yeah, I had no idea coming on the show that there was going to be wrestling fan involved as well. So
man,
part of me
that has unintentionally turned out to be a big part of the show.
Yeah, that's Josh's wheelhouse. He wrestles professionally indie. How would you?
Independent professional wrestler.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Which one? AWE?
actually,
3 Count Pro Wrestling is a promotion that myself and 2 other gentlemen started about 10 years ago this year.
yeah, here in I guess in the upstate of South Carolina. I was gonna say Anderson, but
Okay.
it's technically Greenville. So yeah, we do a lot of wrestling talk, and I had no idea that you, Ando, were a wrestling fan. So that's perfect.
Yeah, I have been off and on a wrestling fan since right about when I got into college. I had a friend who introduced me to wrestling, which I knew it, about it a little bit, but I came from a very sheltered upbringing, and wrestling, it's not that it was seen as like a bad thing, but it was just like, it's a silly thing that we don't watch that in this household. And one of my friends was like, no, it's not silly, it's awesome, and watch the Royal Rumble with me. And I watched the Royal Rumble and I was hooked. So,
Which Royal Rumble? What year would that have been?
I think that was I want to say it was either the 2000 or maybe, no, I think it was the 2001 Rumble was the first one that I saw.
Wow, you started off with a Steve Austin win. That is such a cool one to start on. Nice.
So the reason that I thought that this might come up as interesting for a more creator-based show is, fast forward many years to I think it was 2013, I want to say was when this happened. Okay. One of my college friends who I'd kind of fallen out of touch with since graduating reconnected with me. And one of the things that we shared was that, hey, we both still love pro wrestling. And so he started a Facebook group called the Cobb Wrestling Fans, which Cobb is a county here in Georgia.
Okay.
Excuse me.
For those listening.
For those who do not know. And it started for the first almost year of its existence as just a Facebook group with which the local community who decided to get together at Mike's apartment and watch wrestling pay-per-views. And that was all it was for a year. But we came back around to the following year's Royal Rumble, and we decided to have some fun with it. We had Mike had this one of those toy replica championship belts.
Okay.
And we decided that what we were going to do is make it a predictions championship. And we drew numbers because the Royal Rumble is a 30 entrant event. And so with a finite number of entrants and a finite number of people watching, we drew numbers, and whoever's chosen number came out as the winner of the Rumble won the championship belt.
Oh, that's cool.
And that in and of itself was cool and would have been cool. Except that my best friend won it. And I had been taking some pictures that night, and we did a fun little thing. This was back when Bray Wyatt, who I mentioned is my current favorite wrestler, was still kind of in his very much deep South Waylon Jennings persona. So he wore the Hawaiian shirt and khakis and a trilby and stuff. And it was all the sort of more deep South family type stuff. Well, I had a Hawaiian shirt on that night, and I had my trilby, and I actually decided to take some pictures as if I had smacked my friend in the back with a chair, like they do. And then I took it a step further because we decided that championship belt was going to be a thing in our little group. And it became the Cobb Wrestling Fans Predictions Championship. And we came up with a thing by which at the beginning of every pay-per-view, everyone who wanted to participate and essentially go for the belt would try to predict the outcomes of matches. And we scored them in a weighted way so that if it was a runaway, only one person predicted it correct, they'd get massive points. But if everybody got it right, it wasn't worth very much. And so basically in that weighted sort of way, whoever won got the belt. And I took it a step further for the very next pay-per-view, which was Fastlane that year. I cut a promo on my buddy and basically did it very Bray Wyatt style. My wife helped me set up our living room with a great big black sheet behind, and we set it up with creepy, eerie lighting. And I came in from off camera looking all shadowed and dim and talking all crazy like Bray Wyatt used to there, and walked off singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands" and stuff. And that just sort of started taking off. And before you knew it, people were creating personas and cutting promos on each other, all for this silly bit of gold-plated plastic. And my character sort of evolved from a follower of Bray Wyatt into this sort of cult leader of his own, and I started gathering people into my little cult family. And I even devised an entrance theme for myself based off a Guano Ape song I like. That I know, right? And so I became this Ando Wyatt character, and there's pictures of that. There are pictures of me on Facebook, and I even still have the video files I created that I posted on our groups of my little creepy promos that I would make. And boy, howdy, when I won the championship belt, I played that up too.
I was going to ask if you still had these videos, so I'm extremely excited to hear that you still have those. You can't see it right now, but I've been grinning this whole time because I'm eating this absolutely up.
Talk about creativity. Like, I love that. I had no idea. So Ando and I have met at Andocon, and so I don't know a whole lot of Ando's backstory, and so to hear that story is incredible. Like, I never do that. So this is going to be a fun episode.
We are just getting started.
We're already having fun. So the only thing the biggest thing I ever did, other than like me and this other person, whoever lost, like evens and odds. Just had to take 5 shots really, really fast of liquor. But other than that, myself and the training school students, I think 5 or 6 of them that I helped train, we all watched the Royal Rumble in my house, and we all drew numbers, and whoever won got to give everybody in the group a chop, just a big chop to the chest. And we had a couple females in the group, so they were up for that as well.
Yeah.
And everybody got chopped by, I think it was, Little Jake won. Jacob Alexander, former guest on the show. So that is taking it to an insane level. That is amazing to hear. How fun.
Because of the things that I started doing, other people got ideas and stepped up their game to match me. And my buddy and one of his other close friends, over the course of a couple of months, set up this really complicated storyline that he posted where my friend had made it look like his apartment, that where we went and watched the shows and stuff had been broken into and ransacked by someone who knew about our group. And like Mike had posted a video of him going through, showing things, like everything thrown onto the floor. And then there were like pictures from the group printed out with our eyes X'd out and weird things circled on it and stuff, put on his bathroom mirror, and like in lipstick it written with like you'll be humbled, things like that kind of stuff. And it ended up being he was in on it the whole time with and my wife was in on it too. In order to introduce another character to be my rival, the Punk Rock Punisher. It was so much fun.
Do y'all still like keep up with that, or is that kind of faded away?
The Cobb Wrestling Fans group still exists. I just don't go to it anymore. But
Gotcha.
I also think they've toned down the all of the promo kayfabe type stuff. Like, I don't want to make it sound like I was the main one doing it, but when I stopped going, I think that some of the people didn't really do as much, and that's so.
Well, as long as I've known you've been very much a storyteller. So I could definitely see with you stepping back from the group, there being a little bit of a lull in storytelling moments in your promos and stuff like that. I could definitely see that. Not to say that you were the driving force or anything like that, but I could definitely see from an outside perspective and knowing you how that could be the case.
And if you've never seen a Bray Wyatt promo, Trey,
is he the Fiend?
He is the Fiend.
Yes,
my brother's really into the Fiend, so I've seen that side of it.
Go ahead, Ando.
I was just going to note also my favorite female wrestler is Alexa Bliss, and since she's now allied with him, it's like my 2 favorites are together. This is perfect.
It's got to be a dream come true for you.
She's like we watched what did we watch? We watched Royal Rumble this year. She's like a I don't want to say Harley Quinn, but like a bubble gum pop.
She used to be pretty much a takeoff on Harley Quinn. That was one of her personas for a while.
Oh, okay. That sounds familiar. Like I said, so Josh is more of the wrestling. I'm kind of getting the sneak peek into all of that through Josh and being with him. So I'm still learning.
Yeah, so
Like I said, I haven't watched since last March, so I'm very out of date.
Fair enough.
and I don't really keep up with only the big, headlines.
Yeah.
Do I keep up with the WWE? So yeah, I'm just as out of touch as anybody on this podcast
Yeah.
right now when it comes to current stuff. But no, Trey, I've got to show you old Bray Wyatt promos when he started the Wyatt family, and all the creativity, just the brilliance that went into it.
It
So
reminds me
entertaining.
of like a Jackson Sane. Did he pull any kind of like inspiration from Bray Wyatt?
So Jackson Sane would be more like a monster.
Okay, I was just curious.
Bray Wyatt's more of like a cult leader. Or during this era, he was more
At that point.
at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
If anything, I'm more Bray Wyatt with my drink the Kool-Aid
Yeah,
type
your
thing.
Hearts and minds.
Yeah. So
Well, I like that. That was a cool little
delightful, yeah.
side tour.
Was
down
not
into
expecting
WWE.
that.
Yeah. Ando, I really wanted to talk to you about music.
Okay.
Mostly because I know that we mentioned last time on the podcast a number of things that you do, including your own podcast, which I definitely want to get to, and your inspiration behind that.
We will.
But I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about your music and your inspirations for such, because like I said on the last podcast, I know that I have seen music from you. I know that I've heard music from you. I know that I've seen videos of you playing, but I couldn't find them last podcast. So kind of, I guess, give people maybe an example of like your style, your inspirations, and things like that.
So, I'm definitely of the category of musicians that would be termed singer-songwriter.
Okay.
I started playing acoustic guitar when I was 6 years old, and I have been doing that ever since.
Oh, wow.
Took 10 years of piano lessons, so I've got some music theory under my belt too. But then when I was a teenager is when I really started actually writing. And so the influences that you can pick up, and I can rattle off some names that I would easily say you could view as influences. And if you don't know them, then I don't know what to say. But
Fair enough.
But basically, I think about me as kind of like a little bit of Bare Naked Ladies wrapped up with some more acoustic, less hard rocky Sugar Cult, and then wind it up with a great big dose of Derek Webb.
Okay.
With a little bit of past folk influence from Gordon Lightfoot, because he's also one of my big influences. So I also am, as just kind of a stylistic note, I see songwriting in general as there's like stories and ballads that tell a specific narrative type songs. And then there's kind of songs that just are songs that maybe the lyrics either don't make sense or aren't that important, or they're just a thing. And then of course you got the ones that are more like from a songwriter's heart and soul, that are like maybe they're specific anecdotes or stories. Maybe it's just an expression of feeling or expression of thoughts or whatever the case, but it's very deeply personal to the person who wrote the song, as opposed to like the second category I was mentioning, which may or may not have any meaning whatsoever at all. So I am much more of that third category. I almost never write a song that doesn't have some kind of meaning to it. I don't write songs just for the hell of it, and my songs aren't really like telling some kind of epic ballad or tale or whatever. They're just kind of like, this is an expression of my emotions, of my feelings about a given situation or to a person or about something that happened. So that's kind of the way that I do my craft.
Trey's definitely the music guy out of him and I, but I can appreciate a good story being told through anything. That's, I mean, whether it's a wrestling match, a song, a movie, a show. I mean, people digest stories, you know. So I can really appreciate that.
I feel a lot too. Like that's, as far as getting into writing and things like that, that's how I write a lot of my stuff too, as far as like, I guess more of a feeling and something that's personal to me. I too don't write unless there's a reason behind it. Like, that's just kind of how I am. I was going to say, Ando, would it almost be fair to call you I guess like a modern day bard?
I definitely, when people like to compare themselves to D&D classes, I almost exclusively say I'm the bard. I got that one on lockdown. Charisma's my dub stat, and I've got all the singing and the acting and all that stuff. I got Bard covered, guys.
Now, I don't know if we've ever discussed this. Did you ever do like say plays? Did you ever act?
I want to get to the acting bit, but before we leave music behind,
okay. Sorry, I'm jumping around.
It's okay. I do enough things that jumping around is kind of part and parcel for me. But for music, there were a couple of things I wanted to relate since we were on the topic.
Okay.
I like I said, I almost never write a song that doesn't have some kind of direct personal meaning to me, and this was driven home to me by the course of a particular song of mine that, more than 10 years after I wrote it, gained meaning. And I basically was a prophetic song more than a decade in advance that I had no idea was going to happen. And because I am the writer that I am, that everything like has a meaning and a significance. When I wrote this song that kind of didn't seem to, I almost didn't like it. And I almost just threw it away because I thought, this doesn't mean anything to me. This isn't going to go anywhere or do anything. But I played it for my best friend at the time, over the phone, and he's like, if you throw that song away, you're an idiot. You have got to keep that song in your repertoire. That's the best song you've written yet. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't mean anything. It has no the lyrics are empty. They're meaningless. He's like, maybe to you, maybe to you now, but other people like it. And it consistently for years, people said that was their favorite song of mine. And I never understood why, because it didn't mean anything. And then like over 10 years later, circumstances came about and suddenly the song grew meaning. And now I can barely play it without breaking into tears because of how much it means to me. Oh, so wow. It's just crazy how that can work sometimes.
It's funny. Like, I feel like there are a number of musicians that have a similar circumstance in the sense that like people go, "Oh, that's my favorite song," and the musician just does not like it.
Like roll our eyes. Ugh.
Yeah. Like, oh, you could have picked any like. So for you, what if you could have had anybody latch onto one of your songs and say, "Hey, this is my favorite song"? For you, what would you like? What is your favorite song? What would you much rather people listen to?
Well, I mean, now that's going to be a different answer than in 2003 when I wrote that song. But at this point, which it's hard. Basically, right now, I know that even though I did point out in the comments that I do have recordings of my stuff up on YouTube. I mean, it's not every song I've written, and they're just kind of like they're all like years old at this point, and they're just living room recordings. But I did stream a concert a couple months ago that is still available on my Facebook page, and I've been hoping to try to put it on my YouTube page as well, where I do a lot more of my updated songs.
Oh, that's cool.
So
nice.
I am, because it's one of those things that you can imagine. I like songs later from my career because I think I've gotten better as a songwriter. So my more recent songs I like better. But there are two in particular that really mean a lot to me right now. One of them is called, three. I'll give you my top three because you did ask for those. So number 3 would be a song called Face in the Crowd. That one can be found on YouTube and stuff because that one's one I've had around for a while.
Okay.
So Face in the Crowd is a good one. Another one is called A Hollow Echo with the subtitle Pardon Me. That one in particular, because it is one that is it's of course stylized because songwriters with our poetic license, I wrote it back during, my sort of experimental phase. The music's a little weird. The lyrics are a little out there, but it is kind of like what it's like to from the inner workings of a mind with autism, which is kind of where I was coming from.
Okay.
And then what I would consider my number one of my favorite of my songs is one called Immoral Me, which was written about a very personal family situation. But it's personal enough to get that it's a personal song, but it's vague enough that anybody else who also has had difficult family situations with, say, a relative that is a complete tool to exist with, can probably kind of catch on that, hey, I know this feeling.
Okay, right.
And so it kind of also represents, I think, some of my best musical songwriting work as well. So that's why I would call that one about my favorite.
Well, very cool. I would love to, at some point, maybe down the road on another episode, take kind of a I don't know. I think it would be fun to do kind of a deep dive into some of your songs just to get. And now, depending on how comfortable you are with how personal, certain songs are, we may,
comfort.
Yeah,
I'm not a.
I
I'm
was
not
gonna
a
say,
very
I would just love to hear some of your input, like where you were at when you were writing them, or how you developed them, things like that. I don't know. I think it would be a really neat insight into, I guess, the mind of Ando, really.
Well, what I could do, so again, we can do this in a future appearance, but I could always, when if I'm at a place not in an apartment that I can't really play music in, but I could try to set it up such that I could maybe even play part to, all of a couple of the songs there, kind of as a quote unquote live thing.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Over the call, and then explain, here's where I was when writing this song or whatever.
Oh, that would be cool.
Gold.
Yes.
Careful, I was stroking my ego too much. We've only
we're only 20 minutes in, and Ando's like, "Come on now,
big head out of here,"
We mentally beat the hell out of each other during these shows, so
Yeah.
we got to pump somebody up.
I was about to say.
I wanted to, while we're on music, this isn't about songwriting, but because I'm a storyteller, sometimes things tangentially occur to me that are of note and are of interest. And if there's one other thing about me that you can probably ascertain pretty easily, it's that I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic, or a lot of a hopeless romantic. Sap.
Okay.
And
I respect that.
I do too.
So I've mentioned that I'm married. My wife and I got married in 2008, and we got married specifically on February 29th, 2008.
Okay. Oh,
So-
because it's leap year. Duh.
Leap year. So that means that we technically only have a real anniversary once every 4 years, and we've only had 3 of them so far.
What a cool story. Like,
That's
awesome.
that is cool.
Well, that's just the setup to the story. So we actually ended up, for a lot of mostly stress relieving reasons, canceled our bigger sort of wedding, and we just got married in a courthouse by a judge, and only my parents saw us. But we knew that friends and family wanted to have that opportunity that you often get to socialize with the couple. And so we, to soothe down some of those ruffled feathers, promised that on our first anniversary in 2012, we would do something special. So in 2012, for our first quote unquote anniversary, we threw a reception much like it would have been if we had just come out of a wedding ceremony. We just made it the reception that we didn't have. And it was a lot of fun. And it was there that I pulled off what to this day remains the only and yet best time I ever managed to pull something off on my wife.
Okay.
I made plans with one of my coworkers and 2 of our friends, including my wife's best friend and her brother. I made secret plans with all of them to learn the song 1, 2, 3, 4 by the Plain White T's.
Okay.
And we even had a secret practice session the week before the reception. Again, with my wife's best friend and her brother and a couple of other people. I thought for sure she either knew or suspected, because I think that I'm bad at this kind of thing, trying to keep, secrets or whatever. But we get to the appropriate point that I had planned out with my friend who was the DJ for the event. And we get to that point. We've smuggled secretly my guitar that she didn't even know. One of my friends smuggled it to the place where we were. Her friend drags her off to the bathroom, citing that her hair and makeup need adjusting. And while they're in the bathroom, those of us that I got together run over to the corner, grab our musical instruments, set up a chair in front, and I kind of tell everyone who's looking at me what are you doing? They're like, excuse me, I'm about to pull a secret off on my wife. Just bear with me here, okay? She comes out of the bathroom, and I have her sit down, and we play and sing 1, 2, 3, 4 to her right there. And she has confirmed that she had no clue, not a single bit of notion. She was shocked when she came out and saw everything, and I was so proud of myself for managing to keep that a secret.
Well done.
And of course, it was a really cute moment, as you can imagine.
Yeah, that was my first. Yeah,
it was all.
I'm so glad that because any little thing that secret could have slipped. I'm glad that it didn't. There was no suspicion. I think that's what makes it just so incredible.
It was meant to happen.
Yeah,
It was.
That's awesome.
I've never pulled off anything that secret before. Since then, I haven't tried, but at this point, she knows that I can pull something off. So it would be a little bit harder to keep secrets
like,
from her.
now she's on guard.
Yeah,
Even if just a little bit.
Not gonna sing a song to me in public anymore without my knowledge.
Oh, my hair's on fire? Yeah, nice try.
Yeah. That's supposed to be a fire extinguisher. I can't make a good fire extinguisher noise.
You did all you could.
It's all we can
You tried.
hope for.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done rambling on the music topic. Take me somewhere else.
Let's see. So let's move on to, I suppose, and it kind of all ties in a weird way. I asked you about acting or even just live performance in general.
Okay, so it's one of those things that if I had really had a good idea of where my life was going to go, I might have leaned harder into it.
Okay.
I've known my entire life that I was a ham and that I have acting ability. My parents have home movies, plenty of me in various church plays growing up.
Oh, nice.
As a matter of fact, I was known to be the nuisance child in plays because even as like 4, 5, 6 years old, I quickly memorized not only my lines but everybody else's too, and I'd correct the adults on their lines, and they got annoyed at me because of that.
Respect.
Yeah. And my one of the churches, my auntie even wrote that year's Christmas play, and she wrote a part that was, even though I auditioned for it, it was written for me to play, so it was perfect for all of my like timing of being able to do things. And then my crowning achievement was when I was 18, and at the church we were at that point, on an Easter play, my dad played Jesus, and I played Judas Iscariot.
Oh.
What now?
So
Judas.
Oh.
I got to betray my own father. That was fun.
I was going to say, what a neat dynamic. I feel like that would have been a lot of fun.
It was. I didn't even, and mine was not even a speaking part. I just had to, do the whole come up and kiss his cheek bit. But so that was sort of like, I got into that, but I didn't ever really take it seriously. It was just church plays.
Yeah.
That's all I ever thought it was going to be. Then after a few years at Chattahoochee Tech College, I transferred to Kennesaw State University. And one of the things I did in my first semester there was to take, as like everybody has to take as one of their like general electives, either an art, music, or theater class, appreciation class.
Oh, okay.
And I took theater. And it was pitched as theater appreciation. Mm-hmm. And so, I saw plays, wrote, opinions on them and analysis on them. But the final project was a group project that the groups were all tasked with writing and creating a short 5 to 10 minute piece of drama that they took a couple of days at the end of the semester for all of us to perform our dramas.
Oh, that's cool.
And
nice.
We had to even have like a program. We had to have a script to turn in. We had to have music and lighting directions and set pieces. Like we had to actually, it was a short thing, but we had to actually do it to prove we understood theater.
Fully fleshed out.
Exactly. So my group, it's one of those things where it was done by like alphabetical order by last name. So it was total roll of the dice who was going to be my partners. And I lucked out because they had good senses of humor. And we decided our group was going to do a soap opera parody.
Okay.
Where we would take some of the kind of classic cliche tropes from soap operas and then crank them up for comedic effect.
Okay.
My imagination is running wild.
So there was a comatose patient dying in a hospital.
Of course.
World's rarest blood type. Not enough in the blood bank, needs a transfusion. Not his mother's blood type. And he was conceived through sperm donation, so she doesn't even know who the father is.
Of course.
That's perfect.
Furthermore, through the course of the little drama, it is revealed that not only was the comatose patient engaged to be married, he was also cheating on the fiancée. And then in the kind of grandiose reveal that happens at the end, the doctor who is treating the patient turns out to be the sperm donor who is his father.
Yep.
Also happens to be the father of the fiance and the lab tech who's bringing the results and the janitor who's cleaning up in the background.
Everybody's dad.
Yeah. And then as this whole scene is kind of falling apart, the lights flash, the comatose patient gets up and kind of delivers a scathing soliloquy to the people around him and then promptly dies. So, would you care to take a wild guess which part I played?
The comatose patient.
I was gonna say the
Ding ding.
Oh, I was gonna say the father.
Well, he said he cut the
comatose
promo
patient.
on the whole.
True. I don't know. I figured he would. I see. Well, I guess all the focus would have been on the comatose patient. My thought was like the doctor or somebody that would have more speaking parts to where you could really play it up. But yeah, I guess with the promo there at the end, that's
Yeah.
The way that I was the comatose patient, and the way that I still got to have my acting chops is that part of our concession to the over the top soap opera tropes is that at some of the big dramatic reveals, there's always like bum 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 music. Yeah. So music would play, but everyone would look around like, wait a minute, where's that music coming from? Look around the room, including the comatose patient. Like I would like lean my head up and look around confused, but then like go back down.
Yes.
And when it came to the delivering the scathing soliloquy, even though I didn't write the script for the rest of it, they let me write my own soliloquy. So I wrote my soliloquy. And of course I got to, do all kinds of dramatic things. And one of the requirements for the project was that there had to be a Shakespeare quote somewhere, even if it was just in the program, but somewhere there had to be one Shakespeare quote.
Okay.
I claimed it for my soliloquy. And I said, as I was kind of staggering back to the bed, and I'm like, it's all going dim now. And I did the whole like back of the hand to the forehead. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Then I like leaned back and the flatline, sound effect.
Yes.
So that was my theater experience there. And if I had known better the way I wished my life could have gone, I would have leaned harder into acting because I had a lot of fun with that. But that was kind of the last acting that I did up until my podcast, because I kind of had to go be the responsible adult and get my bachelor's degree in computer science and spend 9 years being a computer programmer before I learned how much I hated it.
Fair. I mean,
and
yeah.
Actually, now that I say that it kind of follows that after I left the corporate career behind, the next job that I had for 2 years, and is still the best job I've ever had, was I was a game master at an escape room, which is basically acting.
At an escape room. So it was, he was a game master for an escape room.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, especially because I was given a lot of leeway to, develop my own characters. Like we all kind of had to fit a mold, and there's like certain information we had to all be able to give, but we were given a lot of like personalize the character, make them your own. So I had like special names for all of my characters, and I developed like, even though the customers would never, ever, ever possibly know this, I wrote like 3-4 paragraph backstories of all of my GM characters. They had history.
Fascinating.
I was going to say, talk about developing a character just to make it more real to you, and to be able to make it more real to those that are I guess partaking in the game,
or in the know.
Will. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You said you did that for 2 years.
Yep, I did that for 2 years.
Nice.
And that's still my favorite job I've ever had.
I could see that. That seems like it would be a fun job. I've only been to one escape room, but it was a blast, and I would love to go back. So, like, I could just imagine like working at one and being behind the scenes and like, I don't know, being able to run that. It'd be kind of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Although you, of course, any job that interfaces with the public, you have to deal with the public.
Yeah.
And sometimes dealing with the public is challenging, but.
How would you equate that to, like, say, D&D?
I would say that being an escape room game master feels like a combination of acting and LARPing. Okay. Even though I have to admit I have never like actually LARPed, I do understand kind of how it's like it's more than just the voice. Like when you're just sitting around a character and maybe your voice, you're gesticulating and using your facial expressions, but that's about it. With an escape room, especially with the one not all escape rooms are going to be the same, obviously. And at the one that I worked for, Immersion was so much more key than in many of the escape rooms I've actually gone to.
Oh.
And like, for example, my favorite room, and it was our most popular room, was one called Ripper, Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
Which is set in 19th century England, which means that we can't, well, you could, but it would be very removing from the immersion to have like a big screen TV on the wall to receive your hints in.
Yeah, I can understand that.
The hint system was a bell in the first area that when they needed a hint, they would ring the bell. And then the game master in full costume, in character, would just walk into the room and interact with you and give you clues and help.
Oh, I would love that. So, like the one I went to, like I would prefer the immersion like that. Coming from like a D&D background and tabletop role playing game background, like that's my shit. Like that sounds incredible.
I've never been to
one.
It was
incredible, and people interact so interestingly with you when you're in character with them. Some of them get in character with you and will like play along and will kind of be, try to fake a British accent with you or stuff. Because I did a British accent when I did my character. Who was Detective Inspector Fox. That was my character. And some people would try to see if they could get you to like break immersion and would like say, so where's that Ando character,
Yeah.
And I have no idea who you're talking about. I'm Detective Inspector Fox, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I even had one time where there was a group that I had just finished helping them out, and what I was helping them with actually was opening the door to the final area. So I was kind of hanging back so I could just make a discreet exit to let them explore the new area they had just opened.
Okay.
And it was like, I don't know if it was like all like a couple of families or just a bunch of friends, but there was like a few adults, some kids. And one of the adults hung back with me and then like reached into his pocket and then pulled out a $20 bill. And he's like, it's like, this is yours entirely if you tell me how to win the game. And
that's cheating.
Like, and it's like for a split second there, like I could make an easy free $20 on this and no one would know it's just a tip, like I could do this. And I drew myself up with all of the 18th and 19th century dignity that I could muster. And I said, sir, I am above taking bribery and I am shocked at you. I will forget that this incident has ever happened. And I just walked away.
Yes.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
I appreciate that so much.
I bet he was caught totally off guard.
Well, he's probably, I don't know. I feel like if I were that guy, I'd feel a little ashamed too. Like, I don't know, you're cheating. Like,
you're there to have fun.
I know, right?
That's too much. Yeah, I've never been to an escape room. I'm gonna have to.
We'll have to do one day.
Maybe for the podcast.
Yeah, we'll do it.
That'd be a blast.
As if it were in the after times after some vaccination gets in play, that'd be another thing that I would love to like do on location.
Sure. Yes,
especially considering that I have a very good escape room record. I am not single-handedly because it's the teamwork, but I technically have not been part of a group that is lost yet.
So not that you have to reveal anything, but coming from a background of, being a game master, do you know, are there like some general like tips and tricks that you might have when it comes to helping solve pretty much any escape room?
Oh, totally. And I mean, there's articles about this kind of thing too. And it's been actually a while since I, have been part of that industry. Yeah. So I may be a little rusty, but some good general tips are that hints do not penalize you. Do not be that, we shouldn't try to use hints. Use your hints.
That's a good tip.
They're the only thing that are keeping the timer from being a big deal are the hints.
Yeah.
Use them. If you're stuck on something and spinning your wheels for more than like 2 minutes, use a hint.
Okay.
That's one of them. Another one is things that are there for a reason. It's not that there's never any red herrings in escape rooms, and it's not that you can't misinterpret things, because I've seen both of those things as well. But for the most part, if it is something that is kind of an obvious thing, treat it as an obvious part of the room and don't ignore it. Because I've seen that happen all too commonly as well. It's like, ignoring things that are very clearly a piece of the puzzle somehow, even if it's just
Occam's razor.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. And
the other thing that I would say is that an important thing is that not everybody needs to do everything. Division of labor is important, and it's kind of important to also, as you gain access to a new area of the room, or like open a box or a drawer, or basically get access to something that was previously closed off and locked.
Mm-hmm.
Look at everything you just got. Because the thing that you have to do when you first enter the room is find your entry point, because most escape rooms are somewhat linear. There are puzzles that you have to beat before you can beat other puzzles. And if you're spinning your wheels on a puzzle that you need 5 clues to solve, and you've only gotten 3 of them, you cannot solve it. And trying to skip it and solve it early is not going to help you. Being clever and trying to outsmart the people who designed the room is only going to lead to further confusion later in the room when you're missing something that you could have learned earlier. So basically,
great tip.
Look at everything that is not locked or tied down or whatever, and find your entry point. Find a puzzle that is solvable with whatever you've got when you first walked in the room, and whatever you find from that first puzzle, whatever you get from that first box or drawer or the first new room, whatever, follow that thread linearly.
Okay.
And then, like, the last of the sort of general hints that I'll give you here is, rather than trying to take a lock and saying, hey, I found a padlock that takes 4 digits. Let's look for a 4-digit number. There's 4-digit numbers everywhere, and none of them are going to be relevant except for one of them.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Rather, find clues, solve puzzles, get an answer to something, then find where that something goes. Because if you've got all that you need to solve a puzzle and it gives you a 3-digit code, now you know I'm looking for a 3-digit combination padlock somewhere. You know, look for what you're given. Don't take something that you don't know how to solve it yet and just try and intuit the answer. The clues will come to you if you do it in the right order. So there you go. There's a few tips. There's more I could offer, but that's kind of a good baseline.
I was just say that's a good, solid foundation, in my opinion, for somebody that's done an escape room. I'm not going to say I have a whole lot of experience with them, but that would have helped a lot. I mean, we did solve our escape room, but still, we would have solved it a lot faster with something like that, because we divided up and we were doing the same thing, man. We'd sit here and be like, okay, we need 5 pieces of this puzzle. We'd focus on trying to find the 5 pieces, not realizing that we needed to solve it kind of, like you said, linearly in a sequence and steps.
3 of those puzzle pieces were probably locked in boxes or drawers or things.
They were.
I feel like that's so valuable. I mean, going into it, I would have just went into one blind, but having that as a foundation, now I'm ready to go to one now.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Tell them Ando sent you.
I'll do it. Or Detective Fox.
Detective Fox.
Yeah,
Detective Fox sent us.
They'll go, really?
So, Josh, I believe you wanted to expound a little bit upon Andocon.
Yes, I am fascinated. Ever since Trey told me about Andocon, I want to know what happened. What happened when you and Trey met up, and how Andocon started, what the inspiration for it was, how you were able to pull that off. Because I've got no clue. Trey was there. I would like to hear more about that. Sorry.
See, the two of you just keep asking these nice, beautiful, open-ended questions, and it's like this entire episode is going to be me talking, which is like, I'm okay with it, but you should know what you're
got you here for.
Okay, so I will try to take this epic length story down to something that is less epic in length, because the origins of Andocon go back to when I was in college.
Okay.
All right.
Really, depending on how you look at it, they go back to my childhood, because Andocon started because I am a gamer. That's really what it boils down to. And my family and I did get started on your standard that you'd expect from most people. You know, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so like I played my Monopoly and Clue and Scrabble, and I'm not sure if Triominoes is one you've heard of, but that's one my family liked to play.
I'm not familiar.
But anyway,
Triominoes, like dominoes.
Yeah, yes, except that the pieces are triangles and they have numbers on 3 sides.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got started with those kinds of things, and when I was in college, when I started getting exposed to what I now call gateway games. That's where Shay Geek and Munchkin and Apples to Apples and Blocus. Those are some of the ones that I got my start on back in college. When I was facing down graduation, I was depressed because I had so many friends, and my social life in college was I was the person that was known for always wearing Hawaiian shirts, unless it was winter, then I was wearing hoodies.
Okay.
And when I would walk into the room, people would shout my name in excitement because I brought the board games.
Okay, nice.
And I was popular for being the one that introduced people in the student center to board games, and people had a lot of fun with my games. So I started getting really depressed as I was facing down graduation, because I'm like, I'm going to be working full time now. I'm going to miss playing games with my people, you know?
Yeah.
So the fiance, now wife, and I made our attempts to mitigate that a bit by throwing parties at our apartment after I graduated and got settled in, and would have all day Saturday, people would come over and play games at the apartment. Felt a lot like the old student center days. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
It is relevant to note my first full-time job was working for Allstate Insurance Company.
Okay.
I again, programmer, not insurance agent.
Yeah.
And I worked in the Southeast Regional Office, which takes care of Georgia, Alabama, and North and South Carolina. And that's really all that I was involved in. And all I was doing was working on websites for like the employees and sales leaders, not even the agents. But as it happens, of course, you do get to interact with people from other regions. And I made friends with a developer from the New York regional office and someone from the Northwest regional office who lived in Seattle.
Okay.
Who also were both gamer geeks like me. And just as a joke one time, I invited the guy from New York to come down to a gaming party that we were throwing. I didn't think he'd do it because New York to Atlanta. Come on. He did it.
Oh,
wow.
He and his girlfriend drove like 16 hours or whatever. God. In a single day, drove from New York to Atlanta to stay with us for a few days to play games with us at our party. And we all had a great time.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
we had a wonderful time. And after that particular day, he had told me that the guy from the Northwest Regional Office might also be interested sometime in coming in for a gaming party. So there was a particular weekend that we had planned a 2-day gaming party that one of my friends was going to host one day at his apartment, and then the next day was going to be at my apartment. And again, still thinking that it was not going to happen, I invited both Chris and Seth from New York and Washington State. Said, hey, this is the date. It's a couple months away. They booked flights.
Oh, wow.
I went to the airport and picked them up.
Yes.
So that they could come in for this party. Stayed a couple of nights with us. And then on the Sunday morning, as we were driving them back to the airport to fly back out, Seth, from the one who had come in from Washington, said, this was a lot of fun, Ando. This was great. You should, like, people come in from out of town for DragonCon every year. You should do this every year. Have people come in from out of town. Call it, I don't know, call it Andocon or something. And it was just like, bing! That's brilliant. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Keeping my gaming thing going by a parody of DragonCon. Cool. Andocon, it will exist. It'll be this parody of DragonCon. People will come in. My friends will come in from out of town, and we'll have a couple of days of gaming. It'll just be great big fun.
Yeah.
This was 2009 when this happened.
Okay.
2010 and 11 and 12. One of our parties, because we threw multiple parties every year, and this was helped once we moved out of an apartment into a house. That was made a lot easier.
That would imagine, yeah.
We had a party that we designated, guys, this one is Andocon. So it's going to be bigger and better, you know, and it was just a joke. It wasn't any bigger or better. But then in 2011, I believe, was the first year that we did it. Again, playing off we're making fun in a, you know, not in a bad way, but just sort of
just poking fun.
At DragonCon, we printed badges. And we even had little stickers that were achievements that people could unlock that we would stick the sticker on their badge for funny little things, including there was one for just asking what's the, this achievement. Can I have this achievement? It was just ask for this achievement and you get it,
Can we hold right there for just a second? Because I'm fairly certain I still have my Andocon badge that I want to run and grab really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. You guys can continue talking. I want to go grab.
You said the word badge, and his eyes just kind of got really big, and he started looking around like, I think I've got one. That is amazing. I love that. That is the origin of it.
It gets better.
I'm super excited to hear the rest of this. That is so cool. You said working for Allstate, and I was like, yeah, pretty much lines up with everything you do right now. I mean, totally the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. I hear Trey running through the house right now. I hear the pitter patter.
Trying to find that badge.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't take long. He must have known exactly. There it is.
So I'm going to hold it up to the camera for those to see.
So that obviously you're holding it has to be the 2018 badge, which is very much different from the 2012 badge, but
that is correct.
So, yeah, very much. So basically, we were just treating it as a fun little parody thing, and we were doing it for the whole weekend. And so it was like Friday night was we actually treated it as a movie night. We had a couple people come over from watch a movie. Saturday would be all day just board gaming, and then Sunday would be all day RPGs.
Okay.
And the big thing that happened that because at this point it's like, okay, so we're seeing how this was a small house event, 50 or fewer people in a house playing some games for a few days. All right. So how did this become a public gaming convention?
I was going to say that I randomly found and ended up going to.
2012 MomoCon is the answer.
Really?
MomoCon is an anime and gaming convention in Atlanta that started a few years before that.
Mm-hmm.
And 2012 was actually one of their, I think if I remember correctly, the first year that they went down, that they had it like in the Dragon Con hotels in downtown Atlanta instead of just being in the Georgia Tech campus where it started.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I've been to MomoCon and it's massive. I didn't realize it was still that new.
Yeah, it started in like, I don't remember the year it began, but it started just as a student thing on the Georgia Tech campus.
Really?
And it grew, and it has become a huge Southeast event.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's pretty massive.
So 2012 was one of the early big years. And Katie May and I, my wife and I, worked we knew the founders of the convention through being in chorus with them.
What?
And they asked, the Georgia Tech chorus. And they were asking for help. They needed volunteers. We joined and we volunteered and were placed in the videography department. Okay. So we helped with taking cameras around to film and stream events that were in like panels and concerts and stuff. We were part of that team. But that meant that it was our first time seeing kind of the behind the scenes running of a public convention.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we had each attended Dragon Con a couple of times by this point, but we had never staffed a convention until MomoCon 2012. And we came out of that experience like, wow, that was really cool. And we met some fun people.
Yeah.
The convention running crowd is great. And then I just sort of like looked at her. Literally, we're like walking down the sidewalk in downtown Atlanta towards the parking lot, leaving MomoCon for the last time in 2012. And I'm like, so I've got this crazy idea. Hear me out. Andocon. Right now, it's just this private little parody of Dragon Con in our house. What if we made it a public thing? Took it out of our home and opened it to anyone.
Yeah.
What if? And she's like, what if? Let's try it. Let's see what we can do. And so even though our Andocon 2012, was just a couple months later and it was still just a house, thing, we had started turning the wheels. And one of the common things, because that we would do at our house parties, we'd order pizza. And so over pizza, when no one was playing games with their pizza covered hands, I had index cards and I stood up and I made a speech that I delivered to our friends, talking about how this was going to be the final private Andocon. And next year I was going to make it a public thing and bring it to like a hotel or something. And, mark my words and invite your friends. And they laughed at me and they heckled me.
Little did they know. Seriously,
so they didn't take you seriously, is what you're saying?
I am saying that they did not take me seriously. And then 2013 rolls around, and I rented out the Cobb Conference Center in Kennesaw, Georgia, and I packed it with 200 people.
Jeez, on your first year?
Over the course of our first public weekend, wow. There were over 200 people there. Now, it is true that at that point, the pre-registration up to the day itself was free, and even at the door was only $5. Yeah. That helps. I know.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's a great turnout for your first
one. Yeah.
Never heard of us before.
Yeah.
Nobody could have ever heard of us before. And we had lots of people that didn't know us. They're just like, well, I heard about it online. Sounded fun. I wanted to come.
Now, that's great awesome. That it was organic, some of it.
Yeah.
And so 2014, I rented out the Perimeter Marriott, which we were also in 2015 and 16.
Okay.
And then I took 2017 off, but then in 2018 was the one that Trey, I met you at.
Yes.
And that has turned into our last one.
Okay.
There were like some reasons why it was kind of tough. And then of course, COVID hit. And at this point, I do not envision a return of Andocon in my at the current moment. But I mean, even if like I kind of suspect it's never going to happen again, like that's still 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 public years.
Yeah.
The pinnacle of which was 2016, in which we had 314, I think, people. Or, no, it was more than that. It was over 300 people.
Over 300 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over 300 people. And that was incredibly fun. So that is how Andocon got its start.
What an origin story. Like
an amazing origin story. I'm glad I left it open-ended because that was amazing.
So are there any other questions you have about Andocon there?
Well, specifically, I don't suppose right now, but I got to know the friends who heckled you, did they ever say, wow, I'm sorry? Or what was their...
I was wrong.
What was their feedback?
Well, I don't think that by the time I actually proved them wrong that they remembered that they'd heckled me, because I've told this origin story before and in the presence of a couple of the people who kind of made fun of me, and no one's ever said anything. So either they may not remember, or maybe they meant it more good-naturedly and they believed in me more than I thought they did. But all I know is that I got interrupted and kind of laughed at a lot. And I kind of feel like, hey, who got the last laugh? Okay.
Right. Yes. I think one of the coolest parts of that story is that you asked your wife what if, and she was in full support of it. It sounds like.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I think my favorite thing about Andocon, and this may just be me, is how personable you are. Like how easy it was to approach you, to talk to you, and now we're friends because of it. And I can't say that about when I've, a number of other, like I can't say that about MomoCon. Now, granted, there were more people at MomoCon, but still, like with 200-300 people, you didn't have to be that personable. I mean, I hung out in your hotel room, like, so.
Oh, that, to be fair, okay, let's be clear about one little thing about that.
Yeah.
You were with Vindicated.
True.
Vindicated Entertainment was a special guest of Andocon 2018, and that mixer was an event that was specifically planned and executed for all of the special guests. So it is not as though you didn't have good reason to be there and I didn't have good reason to schmooze.
Yeah.
But that isn't to say that I don't still enjoy going down and being personable in the convention. And I suppose that's one of the things, here's an interesting quote for you that I was just reminded of, because apparently it was several years ago on, Facebook gives you the memories of what you posted on a specific day. Apparently recently was the anniversary of me saying this, because my wife posted this quote. Modesty is for people who don't have conventions named after them. And that's kind of where I'm at sometimes, because basically having the convention with my name literally in the title of it puts me as a very obvious figurehead of it, which puts me as, that means I say it as an obligation, but it's an obligation I cheerfully and very gladly take upon myself, but of being the face of it, of not only being the one who performs the opening and closing ceremonies to kind of see in and out the convention, but also the one who makes all of the announcements for it and makes it kind of like it's my invitation to you, the gamers, essentially. I feel that because my name's in it, and that also puts me in a position where, when I've walked through the gaming room, people like, Ando, come play a game with us, which is, that's flattering.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say, granted, I don't know who made the conventions, who's behind those conventions, but it was cool seeing you walk throughout the convention. It wasn't like you just. It wasn't like it was about the money and you just made this convention and then left and went home or anything. You hung out, you genuinely enjoyed it. I watched you. I'm fairly certain. Did you do 2018? Did you do a live? Did you come in and talk on the Nerd Burger podcast? Because I sat in on that panel and I feel like I remember you coming in there.
I did, not as much as Nerdburger had, became one of my perennial guests that would always come and do a live thing at Andocon, which is part of what I always felt was that as the host of Andocon, I was the host in a way of the co-host of the show. And even though I would often be on it, they would let me sort of be like, okay, now the people who were in the room, I'd usually try and grab at least a couple of the guests and be like, here, be in the audience, be in this room so that I can call you up under the microphone, and I would do that. In 2018, the only reason I wasn't there the entire time, the only reason that I just darted in briefly was because that was also one of the special events of 2018 was Sean Patrick Fannin, who is
that's right,
a very well-known and well-respected RPG designer.
Very cool dude.
I love Sean Patrick Fannin. He's a great guy. And he was launching the Kickstarter for his Freedom Squadron game that weekend.
I do remember that.
And he was it was a 6-hour live stream game that of the Freedom Squadron that coincided with the Kickstarter launching. And I was one of the people who was involved in that game. And so we took a break at some point because it happened to be at the same time as the Nerdburger recording. And I wanted both me and Sean to be on it.
Yeah.
So we took one of our breaks of the game and ran down to the panel room to be on Nerdburger briefly. But then we both had to leave and go back because we were back at both in the game. So yes, I was on the Nerdburger podcast, but not as long that year as in previous years because I was busy.
Man, I'd forgotten about that launch. That was the big topic I remember of Andocon that year was the launch of his Kickstarter.
That's so cool.
Yeah. We need to at some point have him on if he would be down. He does a lot of Kickstarters and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like Ando said, very well known. So that would be kind of neat.
That'd be amazing.
But yeah, I don't know. That was such a cool year as far as going down there. That was honestly one of my first conventions, Ando. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was probably my second or third one with Vindicated. And overall, I'd never been to a convention really before that. So I don't know. I just appreciate. I get that we were special guests, but I mean, being able to see you throughout the convention, there were a couple of little just things that you helped us out with that I remember. Just being a gracious host, I should say. I'm very glad I got to meet you. I got to meet David Pendragon. He's another game designer.
Gosh, I love David Pendragon.
Yes. Oh, he's so funny. So we hung out with him and what's his name? The guy that he does Empire Games with. Is it
Spanky?
Spanky, thank you. I couldn't think of his name. We hung out with them most of that weekend.
Cool.
Which
Yeah,
was
I remember
really
you guys were both of you, the Empire group and the Vindicated group were very tight knit during that, which was cool because I loved all of y'all, and I was like, group hug.
Yes.
It's a picture of our group hug.
Yes, I think I had that as my cover photo on Facebook for quite a while.
I did too.
So
I had such a huge grin on my face during that one. Real quick, about 2018's Andocon and Vindicated, you're right that I helped y'all out a little bit. I think that I surprised Vincent a little bit because obviously I was part of planning things with Vincent as far as like, where y'all were going to be and what time you needed to be, places and that kind of stuff. But getting on site, I think that there had been a mix-up or something because like on Friday, really, really early, while I was still kind of running around trying to get all of my ducks in a row, somebody had came and got me, and it's like one of the guests is having a problem. They're being, basically, I understand why any guest who doesn't know the convention runners basically like being assertive and firm, we need our stuff taken care of, because I like went and met, and I want to be careful how I word this because I love Vincent.
I know where you.
It's not that I felt that he was being rude or short or curt or whatever, but it was just like he was just being firm and assertive of this is what we need, and I was just like, absolutely, you're right, let's get it. Yeah, I like getting one of my minions to come do a thing, and it's just like his attitude almost immediately shifted to oh, you're reasonable. Oh, okay, cool. I don't have to. So that was just I like kind of saw the mode change to where I don't have to be curt to get some attention. I can actually just say, hey, I need something, and it'll get done.
I don't have to play games. I can just be myself.
Yeah.
So
I think one of you got to ask me something. Sorry,
Josh.
No, you're fine. So I know DragonCon in the wrestling world is famous. It's like if you want to get your name out there a little more, you get booked on DragonCon's wrestling portion of it. So
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. DragonCon and wrestling go well together.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I learned something.
So in the future, if just by some chance Andocon
makes a return,
return
of Andocon.
The return of Andocon. I might happen to know a wrestling promoter with a wrestling ring. And
it can travel.
We are more than capable of traveling, and just throwing that out there. Just
planting the seed.
Just Irish whipping it into the ropes to see what happens,
Irish whip it into the ropes. That's it. Love it. Well, that was the only question that I had was the convention.
Well, you said before we, are done, you did want to also talk about the podcast too. So let's not.
Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking about where we move to next, and yes, the podcast is the perfect next stepping stone, I think. So for those of you that are listening, that are watching and don't know, Ando, please explain to them, I guess, your podcast, what it is, where they can find it, and then we'll dive into your inspiration behind said podcast.
So my show, this is going to give, it's so easy for me to get off on tangents, and I will try not to make this one too long, but for the sake of understanding in this modern world, there's terminology of podcasts as an umbrella term.
Yeah.
Podcasts can mean a lot of different things. And, everything from this, which is a more talky style interview podcast, to, like tabletop play, game playing podcast, actual gameplay footage type stuff. And then there's what my show is, an audio drama.
Yes.
This is just like your old radio dramas from back in the days of like the 40s and 50s and stuff. We're going back to War of the Worlds type stuff. And it's a world that I have started to see more of, getting into it myself. And my show is called Shadows of a Dark Past. It is a drama that has supernatural creatures like vampires and witches and werewolves and ghosts and stuff. But the way I like to put it is much like Shaun of the Dead is sort of not really a zombie movie. It's a human movie that kind of happens to happen during a zombie apocalypse. Shadows of a Dark Past is a human story. It just kind of happens to involve some supernatural creatures along the way.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And so the show focuses, the main character is a psychiatrist that would call himself a failed psychiatrist, a shitty psychiatrist named
Okay.
Mark McCain. He self-describes himself that way. Like, that's not just, here's me, the person who wrote the character, saying that's not me saying it. It's totally him.
It's
He
Mark
would call
saying
it. Because my characters do have a life of their own in my mind. But anyway, he is himself the survivor of a vampire attack from his teenagerhood. And the show begins as he comes to the shocking realization that there is likely a vampire loose now in his adult life there in the city that he lives in.
Okay.
And not only is there a vampire, but he also suspects that it is a member of the wealthy and influential family who are the descendants of the founders of the town, who are basically, your big, important celebrity status people who live and he suspects one of them is a vampire.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And so this is literally like first episode stuff. I'm not spoiling a thing.
Okay.
He
That's a lot
goes,
for first. That's good.
even this is not the spoiler. Basically, he goes to confront this guy and finds out that he is in fact a vampire. But Mark's whole thing is he doesn't want to destroy this vampire because he is not convinced that vampires are inherently evil.
Ooh.
And he thinks that there is the possibility there's still some good in this vampire. And so he wants to interview him to learn about him, basically to find out, are you a threat and what to do with that?
Okay.
And that's kind of the launching point from which the rest of the show goes.
So can I dive into that for a second as far as like characters? So we were talking about earlier in the podcast, for those of you that may just be tuning in, about Ando and their storytelling elements, and how when you write songs, you add kind of a personal touch. It's very personal to you. So with I suppose the vampire and Mark seeing into this vampire saying, well, maybe they're not inherently evil. Is there anything, I guess, do you see yourself in kind of those characters? Have you presented yourself as far as into your writing? Does that come from more of a personal background, almost like a personal anecdote?
Oh, Trey.
So say, do you believe that you are inherently evil?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Let's put it this way. If you look at the characters in Shadows of a Dark Past, because as you go throughout the first season, there's more than just the two characters, although they are the obvious two lead characters. Yeah. It is hard for me to easily think of a character that is not some representation of me or my psyche.
Okay.
Like
Mark.
That. Mark in some ways represents my sort of pragmatism and just kind of like some amount of the trying to recover from a traumatic event, mm-hmm. and or series of traumatic events. Basically, just kind of someone who's been beat up by life a bit and has made a couple of mistakes in life and is basically just trying to have a relatively normal life, but shit keeps happening.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I am in him. Andrew, the vampire, represents me more directly as sort of a personality-wise. If I were literally in this world, I sort of see myself as him.
Okay.
And I would say that there's some element of struggles that I have had with self-esteem, self-loathing, self-flagellation.
Yeah.
And seeing myself worse than I really am, that is part of what I pour into Andrew. I mean, turned up higher than I have it on myself, but those are the kinds of things that go into Andrew. And there are other characters that I don't really want to spoil things for, but basically there are several characters that like, one that isn't a spoiler, Holly Baumgartner, who is the matriarch of the family, and who in her first appearance on the show very quickly also guesses that Andrew's a vampire, but also is like, that doesn't make me hate you. I just want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And she is sort of, because she is a cancer survivor. She's an elderly lady, and she is a weed smoking hippie. And she basically she's one of those people that has reached a point of no longer giving a shit what people think and just wanting to be herself.
Okay.
And also seeing the importance of family that you choose over the family that you were born with. And I many times get on my personal soapbox about life and the universe and everything through Holly Baumgartner.
That's cool. I love learning stuff like that because it just adds so much more to the, in my opinion, to the creation. So I don't know. I like that. I like knowing that.
Having the story element there, and then having the stellar story writing, and then going even further to
I said the depth that's there that you probably would have no idea if you
Right.
hadn't asked.
exactly.
But it's one of those things that like you can I based on comments, and I do mean literally like people who've left reviews on our like website and stuff. People see a depth of the characters. People have called out a richness and development of them, and I'd like to think that it is precisely because I am putting a lot of my own personal self and psyche and personality into these characters that's helping them. In addition to, of course, the amazing cast that I've got, like the actors who are with me span everything from complete amateurs who have never done any acting to people who actually have some decent credits under their belt, and in between.
I was going to touch on the cast a little bit too, because I know it's not just you. How many cast members do you have?
In the first season, there are a total, including me, of 9 characters voiced. And in the second season, which I'm working on, I have added 2 more characters that I cannot wait for people to hear because I love them. And the actors are awesome.
It's so
a little tease for those that there is a second season. So a little tease there.
Oh, you did? Like I've tried to be pretty open about the fact that the second season's already gone through a table read and revisions.
Oh, nice.
We're more than half rehearsed, and I've even done some of the recording for it. It's just that between lockdown and some major depressive issues over the end of last year and earlier this year, I have not been moving as fast as I would have liked on it, but it is in motion.
Okay. And Josh, what were you going to say?
Slow motion.
It's so fascinating that you mentioned that people picked up on the richness and just they really sunk their teeth into the characters because they can see it's real. Yeah. It's just so real. You can't fake that authenticity. That's fascinating to me that, you know, when it's written from that place that people pick up on that and just completely digest it in a different way.
I think people can pick up on real. Like, I think that genuine, just pouring your heart out, I think people...
And I guess, I mean, to say it fascinates me, it's just, you don't get that a lot with the way things are watered down.
Modern storytelling.
Right.
Yeah, I've had it definitely called out as being kind of retro, a little old school. People pointed back to like old school point and click adventures on PC. I'm like, ooh, I like the sound of that. That's neat.
A cool compliment. I like that,
Yeah, I like that one too. And so let me actually give you a little further insight as to why some of that comes across as real as it does, not only because of some of the things that I've added into the writing, but let me brag on the actor who voices Mark McCain, the main character. The actor's name is Carl Childers. I've been a friend of Carl for years now. I met him in 2012. And so it's been, coming up on almost 10 years I've known him now. Yeah. And he was one of my earliest supporters of Shadows of a Dark Past. He was one of the first people to say, I want to be part of this. I like this. I'm on board. And the first time after the table read, because once I cast everybody, we had a table read of the first season. I did some revisions to the script. Yeah. And then we entered rehearsal mode. And the first time that I went to Carl's house for our first rehearsal session to cover some of our Mark Andrew scenes, I walked in the front door when he opened it, and he immediately starts talking about his sister and about his parents. And he's talking about them with a note of sadness and tragedy in his voice and kind of past tense. And then he like points to this small table in the entryway of his house where there's like these candles. Yeah. And he's talking about the memorial. And I'm thinking, wow, have I managed to cast someone who's like so close to his character? He's even got this, until I heard him say a name. And I realized, no, he's in character right now. What? I walked in the door. He was already in character. Just just being very all of a sudden I can't the word escapes me, but improving. He was just completely improving in character, and he didn't even, and it took me a second to pick up on it.
That's
because
awesome.
He was so into it. And there were hours that he and I spent dissecting scenes that we had together of, all right, now this interchange that we've got, the energy is changing here because now I'm trying to get something from you and you're like trying to keep it from me. So I got to come at you and you've got to kind of speed up and be defensive of me. Like, we worked through these things over and over again. And so when you hear the two of us interacting, it is so rehearsed that it feels natural.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah. What dedication.
Yeah, really.
Look, you've now talked to me for over an hour. If you can't see the dedication in me at this point,
well,
to my craft.
I meant. Well, of course, you. I was talking more so.
Carl,
yeah, for Carl, because to open the door and immediately just be in character to the point that the person who created the characters, it took them a second to realize, whoa, wait, okay, you're in character.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dedication, the guts. That's like, I'm just gonna jump right into it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
you asked. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna start lead into your inspirations for the podcast. That may have been where you were going.
It wasn't. That's better than where I was going.
Oh, okay.
So last time that y'all talked about me a couple weeks ago, this is part of what I was like. I want to be able to speak more directly to.
Okay.
We're correct about the inspirations. It is not in the Dark Shadows universe.
It is not? Okay.
The old TV show Dark Shadows, it was a daily supernatural gothic soap opera that ran from 1966 to 1971. And I have it, as I said, it was daily. There were over 1,200 episodes.
Oh my God.
I've seen them all.
Wow.
I got into it when I was a teenager because my mom used to watch it when she was younger, and I was homeschooled from 4th grade through 12th. And when she started picking up the reruns on Sci-Fi Channel when I was a teenager, I started hearing this stuff coming from downstairs, and I'm like, what are you watching, Mom? And she's like, this is Dark Shadows. This is a cheesy show from when I was a kid. It's weird, but you might like it. Here, watch it with me. And I just got hooked. And so you are correct. They did reboot it in the 1990s, briefly. 1991, there was a revival series. It had Ben Cross as the main character, Barnabas. It was actually kind of a star-studded cast on that one, but it was canceled after only like 12, 13 episodes.
Oh, well,
a damn shame.
Okay.
It's a really good show. I've of course seen all of that multiple times. There's some standalone movies from the 70s, and then of course in 2012. Tim Burton and Johnny Depp made an abomination that they called Dark Shadows.
I was wondering your take on it.
The characters are named the same as characters from Dark Shadows, and some of the things are it's really not Dark Shadows. Anyway, the origin of Shadows of a Dark Past. See, I'm giving you, this is your third origin story for the day. The origins of Shadows of a Dark Past came from when I was a teenager watching Dark Shadows with Mom.
Okay.
I started having this idea of what if during the time period where the vampire Barnabas Collins was released from his coffin in 1897, what if he bit somebody, thought he killed them, didn't know they actually became a vampire too. They got depressed and kind of removed themselves from the Dark Shadows like timeline till the show was over so that I wouldn't run into any conflicts with any of the existing characters.
Okay.
But at some point in the future timeline of this show, what if that vampire came back to the Collins home and basically tried to do the same thing Barnabas did and ingratiate himself as a family member? And so I wrote what amounted to a 300-page fan fiction set in the Dark Shadows universe that was called Shadows of a Dark Past.
Oh, that's cool.
And
yeah. Okay.
And it had Mark McCain, Andrew, although it was Andrew Collins, not Clayton. Basically, some of the names, some of the characters you might recognize the origins of. Some of them I changed or removed or whatever.
Okay.
But it was in the Dark Shadows universe, so you could count it as a fan fiction. Like I said, 55 chapters, 300 pages long. throughout my life, I would go back periodically and reread portions of it. And the older I got and the more life experience I got, the more cringy I found my story.
Okay.
And I kept thinking to myself, I can do better now. I can do better now. I'm a better writer. I've got more life experience under my belt. I can do better now. And somewhere in late 2016, early 2017, I was trying to think how I could even approach rewriting a 300-page long story.
Yeah.
That was about the time that Katie Mae and I started getting into listening to audio dramas. And it hit me in much the same way that the Andocon idea hit me. That same like light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could do it as a podcast. And I was so excited by that within the next couple of days, I'd written a proof of concept of the first episode, which if you've listened to the first episode of the actual, what I released as Shadows of a Dark Past, you know, the first half of the first episode is Mark McCain drunkenly rambling.
Yeah.
The first episode in my original proof of concept was an entire episode of nothing but him rambling and telling more of his origin story in the process of doing so.
Okay.
And it was all in the Dark Shadows universe. And I wrote 9 episodes in the Dark Shadows universe until I started getting the feedback from some of the people who I was starting to get involved in the project that maybe you might want to not have it in the Dark Shadows universe, you know, just in case the rights holders might have something to say about that.
That's a good
And
point.
I was all prepared saying, oh, no. I want this to be officially sanctioned. I will ask permission. I will contact the rights holders. I will do it right. And I got the feedback of, you could, and you may even get it. But if so, you will be essentially bound to whatever those rights holders may require of you in order for it to be approved into their universe.
Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't see that as a crutch because I'm like, the whole conceit of this is that it's in the Dark Shadows universe. Without the importance of Barnabas Collins, what point is there even to this story?
Yeah.
But sometimes you know how it is when somebody gives you advice that you don't want to hear because you know it's good advice.
Yeah.
And you don't want to admit that they're right because it's more work, but deep in your heart, you know they're right.
Yeah.
That's what I started having happen. And I realized that as much as I hated doing it, they were right. I needed to make it original. So even though there is still a whole lot of homage
Yeah.
to it, and you can feel the atmosphere is very, like, anyone who knows the original Dark Shadows will be able to kind of feel some of the same atmosphere, but it is still an original series.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So just a random question pertaining to this. I know you said reading back on your 300-page story and kind of cringing a little bit. Do you think there ever would be, like, are you going to look back at Shadows of a Dark Past one day and maybe think, I can do better? Are you still going to keep that same, like, I guess the question is, how far do you plan on taking it? And then, like, do you see an endpoint, like, oh, I'm going to do 3 seasons and then I'm done? Or is it always going to be like, I'm just going to work on it throughout for as long as I can and I'm just going to keep getting better and improving?
Well, to the point about will I look back as I, you know, as time passes, will I look back on it and cringe at what I've got now?
Maybe not cringe, but, you know.
Say I can do better?
Yeah.
Almost undeniably, I can say the answer will be yes, because I am a perfectionist. And I am never going to be entirely satisfied with my own work. And I'm always going to be saying, I can probably do better. And part of this whole, like, past few years span of my life trying to make Shadows of the Dark Past happen has been largely an exercise in letting myself be satisfied when it's enough, you know? And
I can appreciate that.
Then to the point of how far am I going to take it? That is an extremely good question that I have thought of before.
Okay.
The original 300-page story took place over the course of 5 years of time.
Oh, wow.
There.
Okay.
There were big spans of, like, months passed where nothing happened. That was basically if I ran out of steam on like a story arc, I'd use that to kind of put some separation and start a new story arc.
Okay.
And so as I approached trying to plan this audio drama, I thought, well, 5 is kind of a nice round number.
Mm-hmm.
5 feels good. You're not really overstaying your welcome, not, wearing yourself thin on ideas, leave them wanting more, plenty of room for expansion in ways that are not other official seasons.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I don't want to too prematurely lock myself into any particular course of action. So here's what I've thought of. This is where I'm landing so far. Somewhere in my mind, I've got a soft, flexible default of trying to cap it around 5 seasons.
Okay.
That's my default. If I keep going and it actually kind of like takes off and people are saying don't stop and I've got good ideas, I'm willing to stretch that a little further. But I also don't want to end up doing the scraping the bottom of the barrel thing that some shows get to, where it's like, okay, the novelty is worn off and
you should have ended
this
it
show
2
is not
seasons
good
ago.
anymore. Like I don't want to be that. So I want to have the self-awareness of knowing when I've given enough that I'm not overstaying my welcome and let it end there. And part of the reason that I feel confident being able to do that is I've given myself this other outlet that I have not pulled a trigger on yet, but it's a thing that I've got conceptually up here called Chronicles of a Dark Past.
Ooh, okay.
That I see as a separate side project that is contained in the same universe, but essentially Shadows of a Dark Past as a show is kind of revolving around the Mark and Andrew story arc.
Okay.
Like the two of them are the main characters and the Clayton family, if you will. That's the main focus of Shadows of a Dark Past. That isn't to say that there aren't other interesting characters that perhaps merit a bit of expansion on their own. And so I have this notion of, and I've already got the first one of them planned, that my hope is it'll come between the 2nd and 3rd seasons of Shadows of a Dark Past. Because I've got the entire script for the 2nd season finished and I'm just, working through the rehearsals and recording sessions.
Okay.
The 3rd season, I have a high level overview of the main plot arcs I want to tell. And I've got a first draft of the first episode, but I don't have anything more. And I don't have anything further than the vaguest notions of what I might do for a 4th season.
Okay.
But in the 3rd season, there's a character I'd like to introduce that I have this notion that I'm going to introduce them between seasons 2 and 3 by having a 3-part standalone Chronicle of a Dark Past that introduces this character so that when they show up in season 3 of Shadows of a Dark Past, you kind of already know who they are.
And this Chronicles will also be like sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that way I won't have to do a ton of exposition drop in the episode that intros this character. You can just say, hey, if you haven't already and want to know more about this character, go back and listen to the 3-part chronicle that introduces them.
Go check out this little accessory.
That's what I was going to ask. If the chronicle was going to be a written or if it was going to be audio drama as well.
Audio. I've already, like I said, it's going to be 3 parts, and I've already written 1.5 of those parts, and I've already even cast the role, which is way getting ahead of myself, but it's part because the actor I've chosen for that role is actually one who already is part of the cast, just has an extraordinarily small part, and I'm like, you deserve better. I've got you a better part that you can also do, which is fine for me, because Dark Shadows, another part of the cheesy allure for those of us who appreciate the cheese of Dark Shadows, is that there was time travel quite a bit in Dark Shadows, forward, backward, and sideways into parallel universes. And the funny thing is that actors would usually play their own ancestors.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
So having a single actor playing multiple parts, especially if those parts were related to each other, that's just that's Dark Shadows. That's classic.
Of course.
So that's what I do.
Okay.
I really like that structure on, not necessarily going to end at season 5. It's not a hard and fast time period, but giving yourself that flexibility as time goes along.
Giving you the flexibility and giving you a goal. Like a lot of people start writing and do stuff and they don't really have an end goal in mind. To have that ending and that kind of like the wherewithal to be like, okay, I could end it here. Like I think that's important because some people like there's nothing worse than getting like now obviously this goes to like TV or something being like 5 seasons in and then you get canceled or something and then you have to finish it and wrap it up and you're like, well, I didn't want to end here. Like it's nice knowing and going forward, hey, this is going to be where I'm going to end ish.
Yeah.
You know, having a rough outline, I should say.
One of the things that I will admit to, though, that I am still translating, storylines from the original Dark Shadows fan fiction, prose narrative into an audio drama or an original audio drama. Some of the storylines I'm not going to bring across. Some of them I am, but I'm tweaking them because I can do the better job. One thing that I have tried to maintain as much as possible is kind of trying to avoid spoilers here, but essentially some of the conflict between Andrew and one of the main and pretty much the main antagonist of the show, of the story. And I am bringing across, essentially that antagonist. But the final confrontation of the story, the written story, would be extremely difficult to translate to audio only.
Okay.
Because it involves a lot of magic casting and a lot of like chasing each other through corridors and setting fire to things. And it ends with a confrontation in a burning living room that is kind of difficult to get across in an audio format. So I'm still kind of in the process of figuring out how to translate the ending to audio and how the ending of it is actually going to be. Because it's one of those things that even if I do kind of have flexibility about where it is, it's all going to be the filler part. There is still an overall ending kind of point that will be the ending no matter what. It's just a matter of what path will I take to arrive there.
Okay.
That's fascinating. That process, that creative process and everything. I'm just sitting here soaking it all in. I'm just being a fan.
Well, so that was going to be my next question for those that are watching and listening that have never done this before and are thinking, well, it's just you get a bunch of people in front of a microphone and then you kind of, you say your lines and edit it down. What goes into producing Shadows of a Dark Past? Like what does that process kind of look like if you could run through it really quick?
Well, really quick, I'll try.
Well, just in my way. Yeah.
So basically, not all audio dramas are the same. And I know that my process is very different from some of the other, because I've made friends with a lot of other of the audio drama producers, and I know my way is kind of unusual. The way that I do it is that I've got the script, we do a table read, do rehearsals, and then we start recording. And I try very hard to get really good audio with my recording, which part of the reason I got into this and have some of the equipment I have is I actually worked for a while as an audio recorder for some indie movies. That's how I met Carl.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so I'm kind of used to a more filmmaking school of audio work. So I focus on getting good, clean audio, and everybody is on their own individual microphone so that I've got a separate track for each individual person.
Nice. Okay.
And then what I did to produce it was I took, after we had I'd taken enough takes of a scene that I'd be satisfied, I would listen to all of the takes and I would mark in my script file which takes versions of the lines I wanted to use in the final version.
Oh, that's
and
a
then
good way to
I
do
pulled
it.
I pulled up Audacity and imported all the files and basically stitched it together. In some cases, like highlight copy this, this version of this line and paste it over, this version instead. You know, I took care of all of that part of it, of just putting the correct takes that I wanted to use since I'm the director. Then I had a separate composer named Trey Callahan who wrote all of the incidental scene mood music that you hear in the middle of episodes. She did not write the theme song.
Yeah.
That was a different friend of mine. But they were the that music. And so they would send me files that would be like, you know, because I sent them the stitched together, like here's the vocals,
Yeah.
you know, it's the raw audio, and then they would write the music, and then I would put that in, and then I would take it to my audio engineer, David Ortiz.
Okay.
And he would be the one who added the sound effects or Foley, depending on if you're in the industry or not.
Yep. Yep.
And would do the like leveling and making sure that things actually sounded good, and like doing interesting things, like if someone's leaving a room, then moving the footsteps from like one side to the other. So if you're listening over headphones, you can hear the footsteps moving.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is a big part of why it sounds as good as it does, because David Ortiz is really good and takes a lot of pride in his work, and wouldn't give me stuff that was half-assed. He would only give it to me if it was actually really good work.
Well, it's cool that he didn't just slap some sound effects down and go, here you go.
Yeah.
Like he took the time to make it dynamic.
And I lost count of how many times he told me. So I didn't already have insert sound effect I had requested in my episode.
Yeah.
Already in my sound library. So I just recorded it myself.
I just made it. That's awesome.
And even here's some attention to detail. In the first episode, Mark pours himself a drink at the very beginning of it, and you hear him throw ice in his glass and pour his drink.
Yeah.
That's not ice.
What is it?
Because David was recording it for me, and he basically said that the interesting thing is, if you actually use real ice, the harshness of the clink is like too much.
Oh.
Frozen strawberries.
What?
Frozen strawberries. He recorded himself tossing frozen strawberries in a glass and pouring liquid over it, because that actually, when you record it, sounded better than real ice cubes.
Dude, I love stuff like the little tips and tricks that they do, like broken bones, you like snap celery or something. Like I love stuff like that. And just, I don't know. I also love just little Easter eggs like that. Like that's a fun thing to know now when I go and listen to that, to know like he did that with frozen strawberries. That's not glass, or not ice in a glass. Like, I don't know. That's a cool, it's just a neat little, just a little treat. You know? I also didn't realize that you had somebody that composed the music for you, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's all original. All of so the theme song was actually written by my friend Michael Tatum, who as a tie back to the very first thing we talked about of this episode, talking about the Cobb Wrestling fans kayfabe.
Yes.
My friend Michael Tatum, who wrote the theme music to Shadows of a Dark Past, is also the one who won the first inaugural CWF Predictions Championship belt, and it was him that I took the pictures of smacking him in the back with a chair.
What a callback. Like,
yeah, really. That's awesome.
Cool.
So he wrote that, and that went through its whole process of going back and forth and like, how does this sound? Okay, do this with it. You know, how does this sound? Do this with it. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then with Trace, I just I had in my script, like, you know, music begins lifting slowly in here. It's moody music, you know, that kind of stuff. And I would send them to them, and they would just listen to the audio, the dialogue, which at this point was already done.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just get back hey, Ando, here's the thing. I had a lot of fun writing this one. And they'd give me some of the like tips or like how they had come across writing that particular bit of it.
Yeah.
And then I like listened, I'd like put it, I'd like bring it into Audacity, put it under there, and I like listen to it. And almost every time I'd like just start crying and be like, it's so beautiful. It's so
awesome.
Perfect. So it's all completely original music, just composed explicitly for Shadows of a Dark Past. And there is a project that has just been kind of on hold because of, again, mental issues.
Yeah.
But Trace and I are working to also release a soundtrack.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Very cool.
We're of course codenaming it Soundtrack of a Dark Past, which may or may not stick. But I mean,
it's a good, I mean, if anything, a placeholder for now if you do come up with something, but it's still not a bad name.
No, it's not. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I appreciate your attention to detail as far as writing. Like, I don't know, I've done some audio drama stuff myself, and I've never once thought writing in start uplifting the music. Like I never once have I thought to write in like the music and where I think it should start. That always for me happens just in post. Like I start listening and I've got all the lines recorded and I go, oh, I should probably throw in music here. This is probably where it should sound good. Like I appreciate that you thought of that beforehand and had like, I don't know. It's a cool process and a way to do it.
It was very rewarding at the time too, because it felt like, maybe because I had most of the music cues already written into the script because of things that I knew I would want to hear.
Yeah.
But after Trey started giving me some of the stuff, I'm like, I like your work enough. Can I like add a few more places that I now realize I'd like music that there wasn't? And they're like, sure, I don't mind. So I went back into the script and I added, and there were like 4 or 5 pieces that I added after the fact that they just kept going right on and writing. And it's just so good.
Very cool. Let's see. Anything else you want to dive into before we get to the end and wrap up? Anything, Ando, that we didn't talk about that maybe you can think of that you'd like to mention or dive into?
Well, so I maybe just to let you have a little of insight into some other projects that I have got in mind that just haven't moved very far yet. Because I kind of burst into the audio drama scene last year, I started meeting other producers who were doing other dramas, and I've befriended some of them. I've actually, over the end of last year to the beginning of this year, I ran a D&D campaign for 4 other of my podcasting peers, which was nice. A lot of fun. But some of the projects, there's 2 projects that I want to let you know about that I'm hoping to, to take forward. One of them is a big group project that got talked about last October and it just didn't come together in time. But there are several of us audio drama creators who are talking about doing an anthology series called Gruesome Grimoire.
Ooh, I love alliteration.
That would basically be like an evil haunted carnival. And the various episodes are like different people's experiences or perspectives. And each of those episodes would be created, written, and produced by a different one of us audio drama creators.
Please let me know when you start to because I want to listen to that. That sounds incredible. I have a weird thing with like dark carnival settings. I love it. I love that spooky just atmosphere and just a good audio drama. So please keep me up to date on that.
And like I said, we were thinking about it last October because we're thinking, if we could put this together, we could do it for Halloween. But we didn't have enough time to, too many of us were too busy with other things and we just couldn't make it work. But, we'll see how these next year or 2 goes. And if so, that's something I was part of sort of the creative leading team of that, trying to keep it driving.
Okay.
And then another one that I had that it's very much in the up here in my head, and I just haven't gotten a draft of it out on paper or anything yet.
Yeah.
But I've got an outline and I really want to move on it because it's kind of like Shadows of a Dark Past in that it is another thing that is an adaptation of a story I wrote when I was younger that I feel like I can do better now. But not near as long. And it is not a fan fiction. It was a short story that I wrote way back when that was only like a dozen or so pages, maybe less.
Yeah.
And so I've got it in mind to just be a 3-part standalone a 3 and done.
Okay.
But it's called At Cape Clear, which if you're not already aware of this, Cape Clear is a real place. It is a very, very small island off the southwest of Ireland.
I did not know that. Okay.
Fascinating.
And the story is set, the original story was set pretty much entirely on it. My new version would kind of start next to it, get on it, get off it a little bit because it's a little bit different. But part of the notable, in addition to just it's another of my story ideas, is it would also be a collaboration. One of the other friends I made was an Irish podcaster who produces a show called The Green Horizon, which is a great sci-fi comedy.
Okay.
And he is interested in helping me with like some of the production stuff with that. So it would be another collaborative thing. Well,
that's cool. Would he voice anything?
I've got a small part that I would like for him to voice. Yes.
Okay.
But it would be a bit more of a consultant because I am just a silly American, and I'd like him an actual Irishman to make sure that I don't do anything, disrespectfully. Not that I would do it intentionally, but obviously just a gut check. Say, hey, Ando, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah,
that wouldn't
or
really
hey, maybe and I see where you're coming from, but it actually would work this way in our culture. I could see that.
Yeah. So that's kind of stuff that I've got coming down the pike, but it's like that because of just life. I haven't been able to move very much on some of those projects. So
that's fine. I mean, work when you can, and you yourself come first always.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You don't want to force it when you're not in that, creative state of mind, or I can understand that.
I think a TikTok the other day, somebody talking about like the creativity and how it's good to have that lull. Like it's a good thing to be kind of down, almost take a break, a breather, and to kind of reset your mind. So
absolutely.
I could see that. I like that.
Taking a step back is always a healthy.
Yeah.
Whether it was on purpose or not, it can be healthy, it can be healthy, and put some new perspective on it.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Just me tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into our gift card giveaway. So we have 4 entrants for this week's episode. We've got Fernanda L, Lady Spookaria, Liz, and Jesus. Now, there were a couple of other entrants, but those have already won, so or at least one within the past 3 or 4 weeks. So we went ahead and excluded them. So let me go ahead and swap over to my random number generator here, and we want 4 people to pick from. So let me step over to the camera really quick. So the number we got is 3, which corresponds with Liz. So Liz, you are this week's Amazon gift card winner. Congratulations, Liz. Thank you to everybody else that's liked and retweeted our post. And if you would like to be entered into our Amazon gift card giveaway, all you have to do is like and retweet our pinned post each week for each episode and give us a follow so that we can DM you details. Other than that, let's get back to us and Ando.
Well, I've had a blast just listening. This has been amazing. I can't wait to...
We've got, three origin stories?
Mm-hmm. 3 origin stories, almost 2 hours of me talking, yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's why we have you. I enjoyed it. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed it as well, because I had a blast.
Yeah,
I hope so. It was a lot of fun for me too. You guys asked some really interesting questions. I appreciated the things that you asked me.
Well, I didn't want to come on here and ask you those the generic interview questions. I don't know. I didn't want it. I wanted this to be personal and about you and what it is that you do. And I also want you to tell people where they can find you, where they can listen to everything that you do, that where they could maybe, if they're looking at doing a podcast of their own, how they can maybe consult with you and have you help them with what they're doing, things like that. So go ahead and take a couple more minutes and plug yourself and let people know where they can find you and so on.
Plug away.
So I wish I could just say that it is as easy as entirely one website, and it kind of is.
Yeah.
Basically, where I'm trying to make my hub of activity is the amazingando.com. That is, I've got links to most of the other things that I do there, we've talked about things like my music. I've got my music on theamazingando.com, but it's also on YouTube, which my YouTube channel is The Amazing Ando. So there you go.
Yeah,
and we'll link these.
That. I was going to say, these will be in the show notes and the description, so you guys can click on them.
Exactly. As far as my podcast goes, our website is soadppodcast.com. Even though you can listen there, I actually like to drive listening traffic towards our Podchaser page.
Okay.
So that is podchaser.com/SOADP podcast. And that's basically the reason I do that is that it's that is a good centralized point. It's a good place to get reviews consolidated. And it's also we've got a merch store and it's linked there. So you can pick up a Shadows of a Dark Past t-shirt, which is the softest t-shirt I've ever had in my life. That's not just me running, an ad or sale or anything. I literally do mean that. And but on the show's just soadppodcast.com does have a few things, like it's got a little bit of an overview of some of the things. It's got characters and links to the cast's IMDb pages and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
It can be some useful information, but I do like to steer listeners towards Podchaser for that.
Okay.
reason.
That's the one we'll link in the description then.
Yeah. And then just kind of in general, I am, let's see, I also do, we didn't really land on this, but I do sometimes Twitch stream. I stream on Twitch a bit.
Oh, that's right.
Largely I do retro video games. I have done both. This year I finished both Super Mario RPG and Secret of Mana.
Nice.
I am intending to go play Earthbound next. I just don't know exactly when I'm going to start that.
Okay.
But my Twitch is twitch.tv/Ando Valentine. And the last thing that I will tell you to link to because is my Facebook page, because sometimes when I have things that are a little more last minute, or I want to make announcements, or if I'm like streaming another concert like I have before, that is a good place. And I'm just doing a quick verification of my own of the URL before I tell you the wrong thing.
Okay.
And that is also facebook.com/theamazingando. And in that, if you go to the videos page, I've got it's February 2021 home concert. That is a great place if you want to listen to my music. That is very recent and contains all three of these songs that I mentioned earlier that I would like for people to listen to. So.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I think that covers all of the things. And if for whatever reason through all of that, there is some other question that somebody had and just wanted to get anything to me, you can email me at andovalentine@gmail.com.
Hey, that's a perfect
sorry.
plug, yes.
There was that one other thing. You said AndoValentineProductions.com.
Yep.
Because of the consultation, you even prompted me for that. Jeez. Yeah.
I'm glad you plugged that email too. That's cool. That way listeners can, I don't know. It's kind of neat that they can interact with you and ask you questions that maybe we never even thought of.
Yeah. So AndoValentineProductions.com is for my Shadows of a Dark Past is an Ando Valentine production. And what I am trying to open myself for is basically you can hire me to help you make a podcast. If you don't know what you're doing, you want to make a podcast and you don't really know how to get started, or maybe you know part of the process, but you need help getting the rest of the way, or maybe you just want to consult. Maybe you know what you want to do. Maybe you know how to do what you need to do, but you don't have the connections and you need like a composer, or you need an actor, or you need script writing help, or any of those kind of things. Basically, if you've got and really by podcast, I'm thinking audio dramas here. If you've got like an audio drama idea and just need help, whether it's a conversation and tips down to actual functional helping and having a role in the show, I can be hired to do this. And as far as like rates and stuff, that is entirely like talk to me. There's nothing permanent that's posted.
Yeah, it's more of a custom.
Right. And as a note, just so you know, the AndoValentineProductions.com, that picture you can see of me with my headphones on, that was at the Shadows of the Dark Past Season 1 table read, just as a little
that's
note,
cool.
so you know.
That's a fun little fact.
Yeah.
Do you just a quick question on as far as Ando Valentine's productions? Do you delve into marketing at all and how to market your podcast? Because I have noticed. I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Shadows of a Dark Past. I know it was nominated for some awards. Didn't it win?
No, unfortunately, we did not win any awards, but we were nominated for 7. Yes, Audioverse Award.
So it's getting out there. You're obviously marketing it well. So do you dive into that?
I would like. See, honestly, here's the thing. COVID was both a blessing and a curse to Shadows of a Dark Past, and you're going to hear that a lot for a lot of different things, I'm sure. I had a person who was originally going to do my sound effects and music, and she was also a very strong social media and marketing whiz.
Gotcha.
When COVID hit and she got laid off of all her other jobs, she had to focus on basically she had to change her life around in order to deal with that. And part of what she had to trim out, she had to back away from Shadows of a Dark Past. That's why I ended up going with Trace and David for my music and sound engineering, because I had to find someone to replace her. I have not really found anyone else to replace her on the marketing side. So basically from about March or April last year forward has all been me. And it has not been near as good as I would have liked because I know almost nothing about it myself.
Okay.
Part of Ando Valentine Productions is intended to not, it's not only me. You'll see that there's a team right now. There's only 3 who have been confirmed like permanent members of it, but I am looking to grow that team as well. And part of the contact form that's at the bottom there is not only, I'm interested in, get it in your services, is I'm interested in joining.
Oh, okay.
So
let's
also throw that out too. If you know things about audio engineering or podcasting or marketing or anything like that, that you could be of help to a podcaster and you're interested in being part of a team, you can also get in touch with me to join Ando Valentine Productions.
I'm glad I asked that question.
I am.
That way we got that out there.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Well,
okay. I think have I talked those ears off enough now? I think so.
No,
I could do another episode.
Oh man, I love this. This is great.
Absolutely. It's usually just Trey and I sitting here for the bulk of the show talking about just extremely ignorant things.
Yeah.
Laughing, but at the same time, it's been nice to have somebody with such a wide just
variety or repertoire of just things that, because it's so cool that you aren't pinned down to just one thing. As far as like, we can't just say that Ando is a songwriter or Ando creates podcasts. Ando does everything.
Well, it fully encompasses what we're about.
Yeah.
Like what we want to do with our podcast. This was like, if there was ever a poster child for what our podcast is about, this would be the episode, and you were the perfect guest for that. So we want to say thank you for expounding on everything.
Thank you. Don't thank us. Thank you, for being on and just, I don't know. This is a banger of an episode. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed it too. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm very, very appreciative, and you are more than welcome to invite me back anytime that you have more questions for me to ramble on. I am a storyteller at heart, and like if you thought that the real life stories were fun, wait till I start delving into my D&D stories.
Oh yes, okay. We'll have to have a whole episode dedicated to that because you haven't played D&D, have you, Josh?
Despite my want to, yeah.
Oh man, we'll have to. We'll have to get a campaign.
I need to run a short campaign for you then, because I have because like I mentioned, I ran a D&D campaign for some of my podcaster friends, one of which had never played D&D before, and one of which had played a little bit, but said treat them like a noob because they didn't really know what they were doing. So basically, effectively, 2 veterans and 2 noobs that I ran in this campaign. So I'm good with running noobs, and I am a storyteller at heart. So I need to run this for you.
Oh, I can tell you from firsthand experience. I haven't played D&D with Ando, but he and I have played Legendaria, and that was one of my favorite sessions that I've ever run because I got to play as Sherlock Holmes, and I was the game master for this one, and that was such a fun, like just the back and forth that we had. I mean, you're talking paragraphs of just back and forth text that we had together.
That was partially because of the character I was playing. You'll recall.
But oh man, that was a blast. So I can just imagine like a full D&D setting with you taking the reins. Oh,
sounds good.
I thing is, I could just take that campaign I ran for my podcaster friends as it is and just give new characters, start the whole thing over again. I can just rerun that. Let's talk offline about this.
Okay.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. This has been quite the ride. Very fun. And guys, you know where to find Ando at.
Yeah.
So go check them out and explore. You have a lot to explore. So thank you again, Ando. And until next time, I've been the Scottish Hush Puppy, and I've got some food to go eat.
And until then, my ghastly gang, stay spooky. Let's hit this outro real quick.
Yep.
Create shit. Build anything. Make it real.